All right, we are broadcasting, so I will allow some people to tune in. But let me tell you a little bit about myself in the meantime while everybody's trickling in. All right, awesome. Welcome, welcome. Um, for those of you who do not know, my name is Alexander Fazalani. I am the team leader of the Ian Alexander Real Estate team here at eXp Realty, and I'm also co-owner of Design for Realtors. I've had the benefit, the luxury of actually you know, being able to do deals firsthand, right? Like actually close a bunch of deals. In the early end of my career, I've negotiated $1 million properties. I've negotiated the highest one I've ever negotiated was about $3 million. I've tried to do three-way deals, and negotiation is something that is very, 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 creative, right? You can get very, very creative in negotiations, and I feel like a lot of people think it's like an A for B type of situation. And we're going to definitely shine a light on a lot of different type of negotiation strategies. You're going to learn a lot here. So thank you very much for tuning in. Let me just see who we have in here. For those of you who are just joining, please leave your brokerage. Let me know where you guys are from, what brokerage you're with. If you have any strategies or negotiation tips that you want to see or what you want to see out of this, please let me know in the comments. So I see we have some Keller Williams in the house. We have Douglas Elliman, Long Island. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Okay, welcome. Let's see here. Let's see who we got. All right. Welcome, Deborah. All right. All right. All right, guys. So what are we going to be learning in this mastermind, this class today? We are going to go over negotiation 101. All right. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and we'll dive right into it. So let me just pull it up here. Boom. Okay. So yes, we're going over negotiation 101. So what are you going to learn in this class? We're going to learn about understanding the art of negotiations, right? The basics, what it really means, what to look out for. I might give some bonus tips in regards to that. Identifying leverage, right? Where to find leverage, what is leverage, all that good stuff. We're going to go on to what to avoid when negotiating as a realtor, right? What shouldn't you do when negotiating? Styles of communication, because this is going to be a prerequisite to taking control of your negotiations, right? So we need to identify what kind of person we are up against in regards to, are they a strong personality? Are they a dominant personality? How to approach it and how to go about things. That is my cat, by the way. He might be, he's having a mood. He always has a mood when we go live for some reason. Then we're going to talk about creating leverage, right? How to get creative when it comes to actually negotiating these deals and putting them together, right? How to get creative with it. Then we're going to go over the 8 must-have negotiation tactics for realtors, right? So if you guys stick through this whole thing, you guys are going to be able to learn a little bit about what I do personally to actually get these deals going, right? And how to make these deals stick, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that we start the negotiation, it's that everybody walks away with it, right? So just so you guys know, this is brought to you guys by Design for Realtors. Without your patronage, without you guys, believing in this company, it allows us to do all this for free. And we are very, very grateful for everybody who tunes in to further their education, especially during these crazy times of Corona, right? This is the time where everybody's prepping and getting those skills together, right? So let's dive right into understanding negotiation, right? So here's the mindsets that you need to adapt when it comes to negotiating, right? So the first thing is, this is not a theory, it's a way of life. So what most people kind of tend to mess up on is that negotiating a deal is not just negotiating a deal. It's not a one-off thing, right? You're negotiating throughout your whole day with your spouse, with your kids, with your cat, right? We're always trying to negotiate something, right? We're always trying to either A, get our way or find a win-win or find a compromise in a situation, right? So once you start identifying leverage and identifying how often you actually negotiate, you're going to become a great negotiator because you're going to be more cognizant of it, right? So understand that you are not just negotiating, real estate deals, you're negotiating your life, right? So you have to definitely take that mindset into play, right? It's definitely a big psychology curve that I had to get over myself, because I would think, okay, I'm just negotiating this one time, or it's just this one-off deal, right? No, it's a consistent pattern that you're always going to follow when negotiating. It's just like cold calling, right? You have your script. Negotiation, you should have your own version of a script, right? So just remember, it's a way of life. It's something that you're always going to go to. It's kind of like your stepping stone, all right? So it's built on leverage, right? So we're going to learn more about this in the next slide, right? We're not going to dive into it too much on this slide, but it's negotiation is built on leverage. If the person who has the most leverage is the person that usually gets a little bit more of what they want, and we're going to touch on that a little more, a little more in the future. All right. It is not a competition, right? A lot of realtors. I mean, I've come firsthand. I've actually spoken firsthand with some realtors that are just like treating it like we're playing basketball, or it's like some type of competition that they just want to squeeze every little last cent out of it, or whatever it may be. Or they don't, you know what I'm saying? Like they're treating it like it's this death sport, like it's the Hunger Games. When in reality, it's the best negotiations are the ones that feel like a win-win for everybody. Right. I've actually learned a lot through Monopoly. I don't know how many of you guys have played Monopoly, a full game of Monopoly, right? You've actually got through it. Let me see in the comments if you've played a full game of Monopoly in your life and you've actually finished it. All right. The best deals, right, are not when you're trying to sell light blue for Park Place, right? Nobody wants to do that deal. But if you make a deal that's almost good, the person should feel like they're winning. Someone should feel like they're winning. Never finish a game. Well, listen, I've finished many games of Monopoly. Without Monopoly, I probably would have never been a realtor, to be honest with you. But both sides should actually feel like they're winning when it comes to negotiations, right? It should be semi-fair, but it's never going to be fully fair, right? One side is always going to feel like they got over on the other side, but that's what makes it even, right? So we're going to talk a little more about that. All right. You have to understand also mindset-wise that it is a logistical, so it's logical, right? And it's also emotional, right? You can't have one without the other. If you're trying to only negotiate on logic, then the emotional part is going to be lost, and you're actually going to lose a lot of rapport that you have built, right? So you have to be able to understand that it's emotional and logical. So you need to know when to push and when to pull, right? It's kind of like a dance, right? So that's what negotiation is. And then lastly, tone is everything, right? So before we go any further, I just want to give you a little bonus information on tonality, right? Start on a positive tone, right? Whenever negotiating anything, start with a smile, right? Based on how the person feels about you in the beginning of your communications with them in regards to negotiating is how they're gonna feel throughout it, right? So if you're like straight down to business and you're not really like coming at them in a positive light, they might not do a deal with you just because they don't like you, right? So starting on a positive note is very, very important. So be positive, right? Try to keep a smile on your face when approaching these calls or approaching an in-person negotiation, whatever it may be, right? Sometimes I negotiate in person, right? If I go to open house, I'll have my offer right away and I'll submit it, smile, actually show them everything that's thing, and be very positive, see how they're doing. And, don't come at it from like, I'm going to chop your head off or I'm going to take your shirt off your back type of thing, right? A lot of realtors make that mistake. You would be surprised, right? So another thing is upward and downward inflections, right? So when using your tone, you want to not stay monotone. You want to go up with your voice. You want to go low with your voice, right? And this is how you would use it. Like, are you sure that's the best offer you can do, right? See, I'm bringing it lower. I'm slowing it down, right? Using these vocal inflections are really going to help you when making your point, especially when you're on the phone, right? Like, I don't know if that's going to work, right? Like just pushing your tonality to high and low will affect how that person feels about the offer. If they feel like they're pushing you too far and they might kill a deal that they're really trying to make happen, obviously they're not going to do that, right? So using vocal inflections are big when it comes to negotiation. And lastly, right, last but not least, you want to use mirroring. All right. So not mirroring in the traditional sense where yes, you're maybe mocking, not mocking, but like mimicking body language or whatever it may be. What I'm talking about mirroring, I'm saying say the last three words that that person has said to you, right? This is going to allow you to buy time and think about what you're going to say next, right? Instead of saying or like or something like that to drag out what you're thinking about, just repeat what they said back to you. Sometimes you'll be surprised. They'll say something that's like, you'll be able to tell that they're lying just because you repeated it back to them. So they're saying the best we could do is 600,000. So 600,000 is the best you can do. And then just wait, right? If they break the silence first and start like talking and well, maybe that's not the best. Maybe they're trying to get in over on you, right? So just using that mirroring technique will bring a lot of value to your negotiations by just repeating the last three things that they said to you, right? So now that we got through tonality, that's just a little bonus stuff. It does help you in the process. Obviously, it's not mandatory, but just something that I feel like should be mentioned, especially when it comes to negotiation. Tone is super important, in my opinion. All right. So understanding leverage, right? So a lot of people don't understand actually what leverage is, right? So I did this little drawing just so you guys can understand it. So let's say we have a boulder, right? It's 1,500 pounds, right? Me, myself, I weigh about 190 pounds, right? Me trying to push this boulder is going to be very, very, very difficult. Could I actually do it? Probably hell to the no, right? I'm not going to be able to actually push this boulder that far. I might be able to push it a little bit, but I won't be able to push it a lot, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get some leverage, right? So what are we gonna do? We're gonna get 5 of your heaviest friends, 400-pound friends, put them in a box and throw them on the other side of this, right? That is what leverage is, right? That's what's gonna push that boulder over, right? So, this is just a visual representation of what physically leverage is, right? So now we have to think about it in terms of, how are we going to develop leverage, right? So with that being said, with that, little illustration being said, I want to ask you guys a question. Everybody who's attending right now, I want to know what kind of leverage, let's identify some leverage of a shopping mall. Where do you think the leverage lies in a shopping mall, right? Where do you think it lies? Let me see in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Where is leverage lie? Where does it lie in a shopping mall? Someone says there is no leverage in a shopping mall. Okay. I mean, listen, that's why a lot of them are closed right now. Yes. Okay, 100%. So the leverage of a shopping mall, obviously, is that it's convenient. They're leveraging convenience, right? So if you're going shopping to buy a dress, why is it that the shoe store is right down the way from it, right? Everything is right there. And that's what they're leveraging. They're leveraging convenience and proximity, right, to other stores or other boutiques that you can go shop at and actually get everything that you want, right? So let's pull up another one. Let's pull up another example. So what's the leverage at a movie theater, right? Come on, this one's the easy one, guys. I know everyone here has been to a movie theater. What was the leverage? The snacks. Yep, they're leveraging snacks 100%. Yeah, so 100%. Listen, once you're in a movie theater, you cannot leave a movie theater. So what are you doing? You have to buy the snacks there, and they overprice their snacks, right? So because you're there and it's super convenient, they're also leveraging the fact that you cannot leave and come back because you're watching a movie. So they get over on you on the prices, right? So they're leveraging the fact that you're stuck in there, kind of like Disney World, right? If you buy a piece of chicken in Disney World, it costs like $10. If you go outside and buy a piece of chicken, it's like 75 cents, right? What's the difference? It's just proximity. You're in a location, you have to do it. So they definitely leverage that. Another key thing that they leverage, right, that I want you guys to be aware of, especially when it comes to real estate, is they give the illusion of options, right? So they give you 4 sizes, right? They give you the little cup that looks like this, right? You got a little cup that looks like this, and then you got the medium cup that looks like this, and then you got the obnoxiously big cup that looks like the size of your torso, and then there's like this magical cup that you can live in, right? So it's like they have all these 3 sizes, but for only 10 cents more or 15 cents more, you'll get this size, right? We have to utilize that. Like my team personally has utilized this exact psychology for real estate, and we'll go a little more into that and later on in this conversation. But are you guys hearing me? Are you guys with me? Yes, yes. Okay, awesome. Are you guys with me? Yes. Okay. So now let's go to a third example real quick. All right, Amazon.com. What are they leveraging? Convenience, right? They're leveraging the fact that it gets dropped at your door, right? So we have to identify this leverage. Obviously, what is a real estate agent? A real estate agent is the middleman. It's the person that is going to bring you that information. You have to be able to leverage your knowledge and leverage your skills as a real estate agent, right? So that's the beauty of using a real estate agent. You don't have to search yourself. You have someone who's actively searching for you all the time, who's actively scheduling for you on your time span, right? Someone that can help you navigate to the closing table easier. Someone who's going to run the offering plan and the sheets to your lawyer, so you don't have to do it and take a day off, right? That is the beauty of a real estate agent, and that's what our leverage is as well. I just wanted to throw it out there. Okay. Now, 5 things to avoid when in negotiations, right? So when negotiating, right? You don't want to do it through text or email. Guys, this is a huge mistake, right? Tonality is lost. And I don't know if your mom ever told you this, but once you write something and once you send it, it can't be unsaid, right? You can't go back on what you were saying, whatever it may be, it's stuck, right? So don't negotiate through text or email. Make sure you get whomever on the phone, or you're calling whomever and you're speaking in person, right? Text messaging and email should only be for confirmation, guys, right? So it's only for confirming what you guys have already talked about. It's not based on, oh, my buyer said this, my seller, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Try to get on the phone, speak, and then confirm what you're saying or what has been said in the conversation through the phone. You should be utilizing text and email like a tool, and not necessarily like a speaking platform when it comes to negotiation. I just want to recommend that. It has made a world of difference in my negotiations, and I know for a fact it will make a change in yours as well. And plus, tonality goes a long way, right? We said that before. If you're utilizing tone right, you might be able to take control of a conversation a lot easier. Avoid being a jerk, right? I don't know if you guys have dealt with this, but I have. I spoke with realtors who are just plain up nasty, right? Like I don't even want to work with them, right? And I feel bad for their client. Like I've worked with some pretty jerk-wadded agents, right? And I avoid being a jerk at all costs. I try my best to stay neutral, even when the person is being a jerk to me. Like everybody, sometimes you get a little nasty because of the negativity coming at you. But as Amanda will always say, kill them with kindness. That's the best way to be, and that's the way you're actually going to get the best deal for your client, by being positive energy rather than negative energy, right? Taking it personal. If we are in a business of rejection, right? And we should know firsthand that it's nothing personal. If you're not getting your way, or you don't have the leverage to actually get this deal, listen, it's not anything personal. It's not because they don't like you, right? It's because they have a better deal, or they have more leverage in the negotiation than you do, right? So think about it that way. Don't ever take it personal, because that's the first cue that you're on your way out of the business. Once you start taking things personal, I've actually had a negotiation where, we're going back and forth, and my buyer doesn't want to come up, and the person got mad at me. Like I did something wrong because my buyer doesn't want to come up. And at the end of the day, I don't have control over what my buyer is making the final decision. I can only, help so much, right? And they got really nasty with me, and they told me to go F off and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that was her tactic, but it was a horrible tactic, because like 2 weeks later, she had to show one of my listings, and it was really, really awkward. And it was already on a negative foot. Like I already was like, I personally don't ever want to work with this agent ever again, right? And then she was out of the business at the like next year, right? And you know, in order to stay in business, you gotta keep that positive attitude, guys. You know, don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk. All right. So don't take it personal. Don't be a jerk. I could have took it personal. I could have been out of the business in 5 seconds, and you know, it could have been about me, but it wasn't about me. It was just that person's own problem. All right. Showing your hand. So this is another big one, guys. This is something that you definitely need to avoid when negotiating 150%. Don't come in saying, "Oh yeah, my client has this extra whatever." They're willing to never give a price range, right? My client wants to stay between 450 and 470. Obviously, they're going to go for a 470. They're always going to push you for the 470 just because you threw it out there, right? Avoid price ranges. Never say that to someone that you're negotiating with. I never say negotiating against because it sounds like it's competition. But when you're negotiating with someone, you know, make sure that you don't show your hand, you don't show too much, you don't show emotion, you don't seem anxious, right? Being anxious, being like, yeah, we'll try to make it work, and blah blah blah, and giving away how bad you want this deal to happen. And unfortunately, in this industry, a lot of realtors are desperate to kind of make a deal happen, and it shows on their face. So someone who's experienced, or you know, it shows in their voice as well. Someone who's experienced is going to exploit that very, very easy. So you know, it's definitely try to keep your composure at all times, right? And we're going to talk about some of the other tactics that you can use to actually leverage your emotions a little better and leverage your situation a little better. But make sure you're never giving away your hand, right? Especially if you're working on the seller side, never be like, you know, but they're willing to take this, right? Like you're not representing your client to the best of your ability by doing something like that, right? You want to make sure that you're representing your fiduciary duties with your client and you're doing the best that you can do. Okay. And last but not least, if you try to negotiate without leverage. So this is honestly where most realtors fail in negotiating, right? They don't find leverage. They just submit the offer and then just wing it, right? They just wing it completely. Oh, my client likes it because they're emotionally liked it. Let me just dive right in, right? We're gonna go into what kind of leverage that you need to identify before doing this, but just know that you need to avoid not finding leverage, right? Is that two double negatives? I'm not sure, but make sure that you have leverage when you're going to battle. Make sure you're bringing your gun, right? Don't go in with a knife if you know that this is a nuclear war, right? Like you have to be prepped, okay? So that's that. Communication styles. All right, so for everyone that's in here, how many of you guys have heard of the DISC test, right? Let me see right here. How do you have leverage in a seller's market with a buyer's offer? I'll definitely get into that a little more. I'm definitely gonna answer that in the Q&A section, but thank you for the question, Elena. But have any of you guys heard of the DISC profile before? I feel like everybody, Sales 101, a lot of people do, but for anyone who doesn't, we're going to go into a little detail in regards to it. Yes, yes, yes. No? Okay. So the DISC profile is a profile that's created. We're a little bit of all four of these personality types, but we tend to lean towards one, right? So when negotiating against someone, we want to make sure that what kind of personality they are, right? And we're going to touch on how to identify that by when you're submitting an offer and the quality questions that you ask in order to understand what kind of person you're actually negotiating with, right? And when negotiating with this person, obviously you need to be able to speak their language, right? So we're gonna dive right quickly into the DISC profile, right? And how to actually leverage that and actually how to make sure that we're utilizing it to get the best deal for our clients, right? So for those of you who aren't familiar with the DISC profile, there's the dominant, influencing, cautious, and stabilizing, right? So the dominant personality, results-oriented, very driven, very competitive, right? So someone who is very like dry in the conversation, just straight to the point, they might be a D personality, right? And we'll talk a little bit how to deal with it. Influencing, obviously someone who likes to talk a lot, right? Someone who loves the small talk, loves to small talk, loves to talk about themselves, loves to, just communicate in general, right? Very enthusiastic, high energy personality, right? Then the cautious is a very a little slower, like not really like in fast speed, very the opposite, very very slow, but also into numbers, very much into like the comps of it all and how much the house down the block went for. If you saw a C personality's house, it's probably super organized. Everything is set, cleanly. Everything, there's nothing off tilter. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like everything has to be in its own order. They probably look like they shop at the Container Store, things of that nature, right? An I personality, there's clothes everywhere. They have a closet chair. You guys have a closet chair? You understand what a closet chair is? So when you throw all your clothes on one chair, because it's not dirty enough to go in a hamper, but it's not clean enough to go back in the closet, that's the closet chair, right? So that's, what an I personality's house would look like. And then the stabilizing. So these are the hardest people to read, right? So we're gonna get into that, but they're usually a little quiet, right? They're people oriented, but they usually like going with the flow, right? These are the type of client, if you had a client that's S personality, you're gonna have to handhold them. But if you come at them too dominant or too strong, they're going to get turned off by that, right? So these are the hardest people to actually negotiate with because they're the hardest people to read, right? The S personalities, because they actually won't say how they feel right off the bat, right? An I personality, if you offend them, they'll be like, I'm offended, right? A D personality curse you out. C personality, might withdraw a little bit, but, they're not going to completely, just like dead you and just, never talk to you again. And you don't know why. That's more something like an S personality would do, right? And obviously we're a mixture of all of them. And in order to take control of a negotiation, we have to identify what type of person we're negotiating with, right? So now let's talk about taking control of the negotiation, right? So when I identify a persona, right, when I'm identifying who I'm working with, I usually, when I'm submitting an offer, it sounds a little something like this. Thank you so much for showing us the house on Friday, right, or whenever. It was really nice, or it needs a little bit of work. I might have an offer for you. What's the best email, right? While they're giving me their email address or whatever it may be, I'm going to start some small talk, right? Oh man, I really love that banister that was in the thing. It's a very rustic look, blah, blah, blah. Try to get them to speak, because the more they're going to speak, they're going to identify their type of personality right off the bat, right? So what's going to happen is if they're straight to the point, like, oh yeah, it was nice. Yeah, it was really nice. So I'm going to get the offer to my client and I'll get right back to you, right? Straight to the point, they might be a D personality, right? So you might want to explore that a little bit. Oh, by the way, how long have you worked in Forest Hills? How long have you worked in blah, blah, blah? I worked here for like, 10, 15 years or whatever. But here's the thing, I'm gonna go put this offer in and I'll get right back to you, right? Straight to the point, doesn't want a small talk. They might be a D personality, right? Open to chatting and like, oh yeah, I've been in the industry for 10 years. I really love this area. My office is over here. And they're like talking. You guys can have a really good, easy conversation. It might be I personality, right? So now, you're going to figure out how to negotiate with an I personality. If they're straight to the point, but very analytical. So like, oh, so what was the offer? How much was the offer? Oh, 960. Oh, I mean, we've had offers higher. They're always going to say that, right? We've had offers higher, but I'm going to go submit it and blah, blah, blah. Are they pre-approved? Are they LPDU verified? Blah, blah, blah. Like, they're going to ask a lot of questions in regards to the analytics of it all, right? They're not going to small talk too much. And if they do small talk, it's only to get the like logistics of everything, right? And then the S personality is they're open to speaking to you, but it seems like, you're pushing the conversation forward, right? It's hard to read them. It's very, very hard to read them. And those are the people that actually have, surprisingly, a lot of control in a negotiation because they're easily put off, right? And if you're a very D personality with them, they're going to be put off right off the bat. So definitely something to think about, okay? Creating leverage. So I'm going to bring back that illustration from earlier, right? So the first thing you're going to want to do is run comps, right? This is one of the ultimate versions of leverage, right? Really good for C personalities, whatever it may be. But you want to run comps. You want to make sure that you stay within the 0.5 mile radius, right? That you're looking 6 months, what's sold in the area. If you see that this property has been on the market for a while, but the neighbor's house sold for $150,000 less or whatever it may be, you have some leverage when it comes to comps. The comps are not in our favor sometimes. Yeah, 100%. But that's why we're trying to find leverage. If you don't have leverage, then you don't have control of the negotiation, right? So sometimes the comps are not in your favor, and you're correct. But the comps are super important to run, right? So if you're looking and you see that there's nothing that's supporting your price of the property, you have negotiation power, right? So comps are a big thing of negotiation. I usually throw those into the mix if they're supporting my side of the story, right? If you think about it from a lawyer standpoint, if it's supporting you, you got to utilize it, right? So comps are a big thing. And especially if it's a seller's market, it kind of gets difficult, especially when using comps, because the prices keep getting pushed up. The demand is very, very high. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, right? So comps are a great way of finding leverage, right? It's the first thing that I always do before I even go on showings is I run comps, right? To make sure that this is supported, right? And there's going to be some tactics that we talk about in regards to utilizing comps to actually help you out and how to identify opportunity, even if it's overpriced, right? So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I don't want to give away all the cookies right off the bat, okay? So the second thing you're going to want to double check is days on the market, right? This is a huge one. If you see that a property, especially in New York, obviously different areas are different. Things move slower. The absorption rate could be quicker, slower, whatever it may be, right? So days on the market. If you see something's been on the market for 2 months in Queens and nothing has moved, it's starting to go stale, right? They have no offers. It's either A, the condition, or B, that it's overpriced, right? So that's another piece of leverage. If you see that something's near expiration, please lowball that deal. Lowball it, right? I guarantee it's going to go in your favor, especially if something's near expiration. Okay, so obviously days on the market. How long has it been on the market? How many times has it been relisted? Those are all leverage that you have when it comes to negotiating a deal. Okay. Another thing is condition, right? So if you see something that is falling apart, needs a new kitchen, needs a new bathroom, right? And then the comps show you that all the houses that sold at the top of the market, fully renovated, whatever it may be, you have wiggle room, right? So you might even want to get a contractor in there to let you know how much it's going to cost you to do all the work that you want to do, right? And from there, you come in with an appropriate offer, right? Condition is a big one, right? It's probably the one that a lot of people use. And yes, I know some clients get a little crazy with this. They're like, oh, it's not bright enough. That's not a condition, right? I'm talking about bathroom. I'm talking about kitchen. I'm talking about finished basement, non-finished basement. If there's a bunch of holes in the wall, whatever it may be, that's condition, right? If someone tells you like brightness or, whatever it may be, some people just make up stuff, right? Or it smells like cat, right? Like smell will go away eventually, right? Once you repaint, once you redo the floors, it's not gonna smell like cat anymore. The cat's gone, right? So just don't let those things cloud, right? But condition is a big negotiation tactic, right? Especially when it comes to, if you have some contracting knowledge, it's always a plus. It's always a plus because it will help you leverage prices a lot better, especially if it needs a lot of work. Demand. So this is when supply and demand comes into play. If you, like, for example, here in Queens, New York, Sunnyside is a high demand area, right? And things that come on the market usually stay for like less than a week, right? There's not that much on the market. So the demand is very high, but the supply is very low. So that's something that you have to take into consideration as well. So if you're negotiating, you can't negotiate down on that. You have to negotiate up, right? You have to come higher in the price range. So you identifying the demand of a specific area is always great for your client because you'll be able to let them know. right? So for example, if I looked at supply in Sunnyside and Long Island City, and then I also took the supply and demand of somewhere like Kew Gardens or Briarwood, completely different supplies and demand, right? There's the markets look completely different, but they're less than 15 minutes apart, right? So as the local professional, someone who knows the areas, you're gonna have to identify what areas are high demand, what areas are low demand, and then your offers have to come in accordingly, right? If you're not a low demand area, right, you can get a little more flexible with the price. If you're high demand area, you have to come in strong and come in hard, right? So that's something that you have to be able to portray to your clients, especially when negotiating, right? So those are the four things that you need to identify when coming into any type of deal, right? So remember how we said, you have to identify specific things. Those are the four things that you 100% need to identify, right? So let's go. I want to answer this question real quick. Where was it? Let me scroll up real quick. How do you find leverage in a seller's market with a buyer's offer? This is a great question, right? So if, for example, Nassau right now, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with New York, but Nassau is moving off the shelf. Even through the coronavirus, people are still buying houses, right? The demand is super high. Everything comes in the market sells. It's like crazy, right? In those situations, you're gonna have to come in strong, right? Especially if you see the same pattern, right? So for example, I have a client right now that's moving out to Nassau. We went in on a bunch of deals, but we're unable to close on them because there's so much demand for the ones that they liked, right? And there was a lot of bidding wars, and they just weren't willing to bid, right? So in that situation, you're gonna have to come in strong because you don't have as much leverage. So your leverage is your price, right? Your leverage is your ability to get an inspector in faster than anybody else. Having the inspector ready, like literally talking to the inspector on the phone, and be like, "Hey, listen, here's my price. It's a really high price. It's a great price. I want that, and I also have an inspector willing to come in tonight or tomorrow morning to get this property moved." Right? But as the professional, you have to identify the demand of each area, right? A lot of agents are they're reactionary, right? You have to be very proactive if you want to be a successful agent. So you're gonna have to see things beforehand. So if I'm going into a showing, I'm not gonna just show. I'm gonna have everything prepped, especially if I know it's something that they might like, right? So that all comes with preparation, with how well you know your client, right? So I hope that was a helpful answer. Before I move on, if you have any other questions, guys, you can throw them in. If I see it during the Q&A, I'm gonna answer, or I'll stop and answer it during the presentation. So those are the four things, like I said, guys, in regards to a deal. You're gonna need to identify those four things. So if the comps show that it's overpriced, it's been on the market for a long time, right? The condition is, it's all right? And the demand isn't crazy for it. And you see that it's been sitting on the market for a while, right? What are you gonna do as a negotiator? You're gonna leverage those in the negotiation, right? Say, hey, the property is in air condition. It's been on the market for like 4 or 5 months. The comps showing that it's a bit overpriced. Is this the best you can do? Is like I'm saying, like this is the best offer I think we can go with, right? And then leverage some of the tools that we're gonna go over, right? So we're gonna get into some of the tools that we can use, right? The 8 tactics, right? So these are things that I've used, and the beauty of this is you can mix and match however you want, right? Mix and match all of these, right? So the time strategy. So if you saw, for example, that the days on the market, it's been a long time, the comps are like not really there, and you leverage time, right? Be like, yeah, I mean, this is the best we can do. Tell your client like, oh, give me 2 or 3 days, right? Sit on it, right? Sit on the offer, see what they say, and then follow up with them like, oh, well, what? Like even if your client's like, oh, I'm willing to come up $5,000-$10,000 on it on a negotiation, be like, all right, just thanks for letting me know. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna see if I can bring them down a little more. After 3 days, if they don't get back to you, 4 days, they don't get back to you, call them back like, all right, my client's willing to go up another 5,000, but we would need to close quicker, right? So now you're doing the give and take technique, right? So giving and taking is obviously you must have some type of leverage in order to use the give and take method. But obviously, if you don't have leverage, you can't really give and take too much, right? The only thing you can really leverage is price. If you don't really have, if the demand's super high and it's the favor of the seller, right? So the time strategy, the silent treatment. So this is where a lot of people fail, because a lot of people are texting and they're doing email. An amazing way to tell if someone's bluffing or not is just being silent on the phone when they give you their counter offer, right? So let's say I'm talking to someone on the phone. I gave them my offer. They counter offered me closer to asking. I'm like, "Ah, hmm, yeah, I don't know if that's gonna work. You think that's the best they can do?" And just waiting. And then if they say, yeah, that's the best we can do, blah, 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 just wait a little bit. Sometimes if you have an I personality, they'll literally like they won't be able to handle the silence, and they're literally gonna come back and make a solution for you. So sometimes they'll come back and be like, oh yeah, yeah, well listen, I'll talk to seller, let me see what we can do. Right? Just because they hate the silence of it all. Right? And if you took control of the conversation or took control of the negotiation in the prior, like we did in the prior, how to identify the personality types and do that, this is a great tool, right? You leveraging silence is probably one of the most underestimated ways of negotiating, right? So if you're leveraging time, so on this, let's say we're working with a seller, right? And we're working on the seller side. Let's say you have one offer on the table. It's under what they want, but the seller is okay with the price, right? Listen, if that person doesn't really have too much leverage, leverage their offer, right? You can totally leverage their offer, right? By saying, we have a couple of offers on the table. We have a couple of more people that want to see it. I will give you a call back. Unless you want to come up with a higher offer, maybe that'll change the seller's mind, right? By just utilizing something like that, that can actually raise the price right up front, right? Someone used that on me once, and I knew that my client was willing to come higher, and I was earlier on in my career. I like gave up all my cards. I was like, yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, I think we come up under 5,000, right? And we just gave up $5,000, right? Just by utilizing time and not saying, oh, I don't want to wait 2 or 3 days, right? If you utilize time, you're probably going to get a lot more out of these negotiations than you would if you didn't leverage time. And then not leveraging the silent treatment, right? The 3-tap. So a negotiation always counters usually once or twice, right? How many times, like, you put in the offer, they counter, then you counter, and then you guys meet halfway, right? Or something like that. That usually happens a majority of the time, right? Or the deal falls apart. But usually between 2 or 3 conversations is usually when you guys like, oh, let's just split the difference. And then that's how you guys come up with the price, right? I like to use a 3-tap method. So I ask one more time, are you sure that's the best you can do? Can you just talk to the seller? I really want to make this deal work. Is it possible, right? Just by going that extra time, I 9 out of 10 times actually get a better price for my buyer or a better price for my seller. So 3 times, not 2, right? Don't do that meet me halfway thing. If you go back 3 times, I guarantee that you'll get a better deal than if you only went once or twice, right? With the counter offers back and forth, right? So that's a big one, right? And obviously you need leverage to do this. There has to be some type of slowness in the market, or you have to be getting in early. It's not, I'm saying the demand isn't really there. There has to be some type of leverage that you need to identify beforehand, right? If this is a high demand area, none of these are really going to work because leverage is against you. So the only leverage that you really have is price, right? Does that make sense, guys? So the give and take. The give and take is another one, right? So you always want to give with using some type of take, right? So, or you want to take after you give, right? So even before they give you the offer or the counter offer, well, listen, if you agree to the price, we'll be able to do this, this, and this, right? Or yeah, we'll give you your price, but we want to do a seller's concession, and this is the concession, right? You always try to come in with the give and take method, right? Another good negotiation is a safe island strategy. So this is good when you're actually working with clients, right? This is not necessarily great because you're never really meeting with the agent in person for the most part when it comes to negotiating a deal, unless you presented the offer at an open house. But the safe island method, right? Taking them to a location like a Starbucks or, your office, or meeting them at their house. You want to find a safe island where you can have a genuine conversation and build more rapport, so that the negotiations go in a positive light, right? And they see you for more of someone that is on their level, right? You're not just a phone voice. You're someone that's in person. So they're more likely to make something work with you if you have them in person and create a safe island, right? So obviously, negotiating with the buyer, negotiating with a seller always works better in person. So for example, if I have a bunch of offers on a property, for the most part, I'm not gonna just tell the client over the phone. I'm not gonna be lazy about it. I'm gonna take all the offers and all the paperwork to the seller and be like, all right, this is this offer, this is this offer, this is this offer. Explain all the criteria of all the offers, and let them make a decision to my face, right? It does make a world of a difference, right? When it comes to a buyer, same process, but for buyers is more like, hey, I want to work with you as a client, so I want to meet you in person. Let's build rapport. Let's go over what it is that you really need, and we'll see how we can find leverage to work together, right? So that's the safe island technique, right? So that's something that you always want to utilize whenever you can, right? The acknowledgement letter. So I want to ask a quick question. This is just purely statistical, right? For all of you guys that are in here, have you ever worked on a deal where you felt like your offer was not being submitted? If you ever felt that way, please say yes in the comments. I want to know if that has happened to you guys. Yes, that has happened to me. Yes, 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 100%. Yes, yes. Okay, yes. So many times, right? It has happened to me, right? And the best way around it, and I'm telling you, is the acknowledgement letter. If you truly feel that this person is not representing their client to their best ability, you're coming with probably one of the strongest offers, whatever it may be, utilize an acknowledgement letter. You can find that on your MLS, right? They have it on part of our MLS. If you go to the documents on demand section, you can get an acknowledgement letter. You fill it out, send it to the agent, right? And if they don't respond back, or you feel like, they're not really submitting your offer, you have to go to the MLS. And I know right now it's a hard time because we're in this weird area where nobody's really working, right? With COVID going crazy, or making everybody stay at home, right? So the MLSs aren't fully functional. So it's really hard to file a complaint right now. But when that is, back to normal, I highly recommend that if you ever feel that way, or you just submit it with all your offers, right? It's always a good leverage tool to make sure that the person that you're working with knows that you're serious and you mean business, right? I always submit all, acknowledgement letters with my offers, right? To make sure that the seller saw my offer, right? So if they take it personal, because sometimes they will, sometimes people will take it personal. Make sure that you just say, listen, I do it with all my deals, right? Sometimes you can use that as a punch, like, oh, I mean, we keep coming up here, make this all, but then they usually take it in a negative light. I just like doing it off the front, like right off the bat, right? I always submit the acknowledgement letter with my offer to make sure that, it's being seen and being represented as much as possible. So if you guys don't know where to get that, it's usually on your documents in demand. If you're in, like, part of OneKey, you can get that in the MLS on documents on demand, right? And you can make your own version, or you can ask your brokerage. They should be able to give you that. The highball offer. So this one is never really utilized. Most people don't even know about the highball offer, right? This one is something that I use on overpriced properties that are really, really, really nice. Like something that's super renovated, something that's super beautiful, that might be a little out of the range, right? I actually showed this technique to one of my agents, and it worked like a charm, right? So let's say we know that something is $45,000 above appraised value. We know it's not going to appraise for as much, right? What we did was, we will pay your price. However, we're only going to pay the market value. You put that condition into the contract, and like magic, when the appraisal comes back short, you guys are good. And if your client's willing to pay the price of the actual property, let's say it's 20,000 or whatever it may be, and you get that in a mortgage, no harm, no foul. They got the property they wanted, and there's no issue, right? As long as they're okay with the monthly or whatever it may be. So that's the HIBO offer. This is really good for properties that are high demand, right? So come higher than what you think anybody else is willing to go, and then just say you're only going to pay the market value in the contract, right? It's a really good technique, and it really does work. I mean, it worked 9 out of 10 times for me. I never had any negative experience with that technique, and it really, really does help. I see that we have a question. Do you know if Revney has this? I'm not sure. I'm sure they do, but I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. But if you look up acknowledgement offers, you know, if you want, you can DM me directly, and I can show you. I can actually send it to. I can send you like a mocked up version, and maybe you can have your brokerage, you know, put that together, right? You know, it's just something that will help out. Just DM me at Alex Fazlani, and I'll see if I can forward it to you via email. Okay. So let's see here. And the last thing is a lowball offer. This is the one that we all know. And obviously this is for ones that you have extreme leverage on. So long time on the market, condition is crappy, location isn't in the ideal location, you can lowball it, right? Come in low, right? Even if people get offended, just come in low, see what you can do, see what you can make work, right? So those are the 8 tactics that every realtor should know, right? Those are like the basics, the basics of negotiation, right? You know, there's obviously more that I use. There's a lot of other techniques like the fear of loss and things of that nature that I utilize myself. But if you just you know, leverage these 8 things and you put these 8 things into motion, I guarantee you will close more deals, you will get better deals, and you will make things happen, right? And again, this is brought to you guys for free by Design for Realtors, because you know, you guys contributing to it has really allowed us to do what we love, which is teach and add value to you guys and continuously, you know, give back to our community of realtors, right? The more we stay sharp, the more we can actually grow as a community, the better of a name we'll give to realtors. Because I feel like a lot of people just see us as salespeople, and it's just because everybody's scrummaging for what's left over instead of truly improving their skills. Right, guys? So I'm gonna open it up for Q&A. If anybody has any questions in regards to anything, please leave it in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer. Let me see if anybody has said something. What was the biggest deal that I've had that fell through? There was one that I had that was a 3-way negotiation. So I had a for sale by owner that wasn't sure if they wanted to work with me, but they wanted a specific type of property. I found them like something that was almost perfect to what they wanted, which was one of my other clients' properties. And I tried to do this 3-way deal, right? The GCI itself would have been 80 grand. And we almost made it work. And then it fell through because the person that was selling the co-op didn't want to sell their co-op anymore. So it fell apart. But that was probably the biggest thing that fell out of the stratosphere for me. How do you think COVID has affected negotiation in a seller's market with low leverage? The client has a large. So when it comes to down payments, right? Depending on where in the market you are, so if you're in like the luxury market, the down payment obviously is important. But if you're in like a lower value area, in regards to like anywhere under 700,000, you know, the down payment doesn't really play into effect. If you have more than 20%, you're good, right? That's it. Like 20%, you're not paying PMI. The likelihood of it falling through is not really a big deal, right? So how do you think COVID? So I think COVID has turned things upside down a little bit for right now. I think it really just kind of changed the way we do things. So now we're negotiating beforehand and then coming in afterward. It's just a little messy right now. I can't wait for things to go back to normal. But I think once realtors are back out there and back doing their thing, things will kind of go back to normal. So I don't think the COVID negotiations are gonna stay. I think it's gonna go with the virus. But yeah, I mean, if fact the negotiation seller market. So in regards to the seller's market, you know, it depends on the area, right? Like right now, Nassau still crazy. I don't know, people are still buying houses left and right. So you know, I think the COVID situation is only messing with negotiation mainly in like the boroughs area right now. Can you please briefly define the three tap method again? Sure. Um, so the three tap method is kind of like going back three times, right? So usually you put in your offer, right? And then someone counters, right? And then you counter their counter. And then the selling agent or the buyer's agent says, let's meet halfway, right? I will go one more time after that, right? Push the comfortability of it a little more and go at least one more time and leverage either time or you know the situation, right? Whatever it may be. If I feel like I have leverage over it, I will utilize it in the sense where it's like, are you sure that's the best you can do? Are you 100% sure that's the best you can do? I don't know if we can make that happen, right? Um, or is your if you're on the seller side, you can obviously change this up and be like, are you really willing to let the deal die for $10,000 or $5,000? Let's see what we can make happen. Go talk to your buyer at least one more time, just one more time, and see if they can come up or we can, you know, make something happen, right? Just going the extra tap, right? I call it like, you know, I don't know if you guys ever watch Zombieland where it's like the double tap to make sure that they're really dead. I just call it the triple tap because I go back three times, right? So it's one time, two times, and then three times. Sometimes I'll go to I'll even go as far as four times if I really feel like they're bluffing and I have leverage. I have gone back like four times, right? Um, and usually that's like with a seller who's like unrealistic or something like that, right? Let's see. Um, do you recommend any books on this topic? I do. I recommend what's it called? Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Really good book. He's an FBI negotiator, and he teaches us a lot on just mindset, right? He talks about the F word, which is not obviously what you're thinking it is. It's fair, right? When someone's offended, they tend to use the word fair, like that's fair, or I'm just trying to do what's fair, right? And that's the ultimate show of not doing the you know, that's the ultimate show of that you don't have any cards to play anymore, right? I just want what's fair, right? So that's a big one. One of his concepts. He has a lot of good concepts, a lot of good stories of how like he helped negotiate like people's lives, basically, right? Where terrorists took them or whatever it may be. And he talks about he basically teaches you the basics of negotiation. So it's a great book. Highly recommend it. Let's see. Any other questions, guys? What's the largest deal you have ever negotiated? $3 million is the largest deal I've negotiated myself personally. It was a $3 million deal. Actually, I think it was 4 million. I got to double check. It was earlier on in my career. Um, but yeah, that was probably the biggest one. It was a building. Um, and no, actually, that one was a luxury condo. Luxury condo. I've also done a building as well in Williamsburg that was pretty high too. Um, like and at the end of the day, it was leverage, right? I found the fact that I didn't have a CO, that it was on a really good block, that I knew was demand, and we only had one other offer that was lowball that we didn't want, but I leveraged it to get us the price that we really wanted. So you know, there's a lot of ways to find leverage, especially as a realtor. A lot of creative ways. Um, how to negotiate with the devil? I don't know what that means. Could you elaborate a little more on that one? An evil agent. So obviously, some agents are going to be a little mean, right? They're not going to be easy to speak to. They're not going to be, you know, easy to work with. The best thing you can do in those situations, like I said, Amanda said it, is try your best not to give into their energy. And by using the mirroring technique of, in like I told you in the beginning, is really, really going to make them face themselves, right? By leveraging what they said to you, the last three words that they said to you. So if they're like, if you can make it happen, if I can make it happen. then they're gonna like, wow, I'm sounding like a dick right now. Sometimes they'll even apologize, right? I just try not to let anything get into my head. Obviously, one big thing that always gets under my skin is when an agent tells me how long they've been in the business, right? Like that's always a pet peeve of mine. When they're like, I've been in the business for 20 years. That's great for you. I'm very happy that you're still doing this, right? Like, I don't know what to tell you. But I kind of lose it when someone says that. However, I need to tone it back and bring it back. Like, oh, so you've been in the business for 20 years. Yeah, so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, awesome. So in regards to the price or whatever you're saying, like dive back into it. By repeating what they're saying will allow you to kind of give yourself time to cool the hell off, right? Because they said something rude to you, and I know you want to go into fight mode if you're anything like me. So you gotta be able to cool out and control your temper. Because if you control your temper, you're going to control the conversation and you're going to control negotiations, which is going to make the deal happen, which is going to help you deal with your client better. You're going to get them the deal, right? Because at the end of the day, we're doing this for our clients, right? We're not just doing it for our commission. We're doing it for our clients. We're doing it to help our clients get the best deal humanly possible. Any other questions, guys? Any questions while I have you guys on here? Let's see. Anything going once, going twice? Okay, well, I'll leave it at that, guys. Well, thank you so much for attending this. Me and Amanda are loving putting on these classes. We really do appreciate that all of you guys have been showing up consistently and really taking charge of your business. If you guys have any further questions, you can always reach out to me at Alex Fazlani or go visit me on my website, alexfazlani.com. And like I said before, this is brought to you guys by Design for Realtors, which is a e-commerce that's geared towards helping realtors and providing as much value to realtors as possible. And we love doing this for free, guys. And your contribution has always been, we're very, very grateful to it. And we really do hope that this was good for you guys. So Deborah saying this is great. Thank you for the great information. You guys are both great teachers. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Deborah. Really do appreciate the kind words. Elena said, sent you a message in Instagram. Thanks for the live. No problem. Anytime. We are always here for you guys. And you can always reach out to me and Amanda. We're open books. So we'll be more than happy to share everything that we're learning in these crazy times as well. So we love you guys. And remember, obviously closing deals is important. Negotiating and being the best version of yourself is great. But at the end of the day, we always have to be really good people. So I will see you guys later. And enjoy the rest of your day.